Brexit talks back in standoff mode as Davis demands compromise. UK. Prime Minister Theresa May is locked in a new Brexit standoff with European leaders as diplomatic efforts to reach a breakthrough in talks by year-end yield little. May's Brexit Secretary David Davis said he wanted the European Union to compromise, saying Britain has made all the running in negotiations so far. EU leaders, including those who have met May in the last 24 hours, declared it's up to the UK to make further concessions. They want more clarity on what the UK is prepared to pay when it leaves. https://yimg.com/fce/API/res/1 2/2-2ZPPWZPBG-W7@0.9C3JAGRCO2ZPPW09MZ003E909-7C209MT-T324NOS/http://slingstone. Zenfs. com/7_F26757F2CB8C95D4D15EB9EU1B. I want them to compromise, Davis said in a BBC interview on Friday. So far in this negotiation we've made quite a lot of compromises, he said. We haven't always got that back. The stalemate is dragging on as time runs out for a deal to be reached on the divorce terms so that EU leaders can agree to start talking about the future trade deal. British officials fear the negotiations could fall apart if that doesn't happen at the next EU summit in December, although European officials are looking at possible dates in January or February to have another go. https://yimg.com/fce/API/res/1 2/2-2ZPPW7@0.9C3JAGRCO2ZPPW7@0.9MT-T324NOS/http://slingstone. Zenfs. com/7_F284A82E9F8A264CD07C2A8B9972F63629. The UK has already agreed to pay into the EU budget for 2 years after leaving, which it considers a step toward what the EU wants, even if the Europeans say it doesn't go far enough. Britain has also agreed to the EU schedule for talks, that the divorce gets dealt with before trade. The EU side is clear that it doesn't think it's up to them to make concessions. Davis was grilled late Thursday by German business leaders in Berlin about the UK's intentions on the bill. He said he'd answer that question in a few more weeks. May dodged a question from reporters on Friday morning about whether the UK was preparing to put more money on the table. https://yumg.com/se/API/res/1/2/v PBWF68 MOB 6U5C6M/C/Xbwalk9C3 Jagraco 2 ZPPWZPBGW7 AD 0 ZODK7CHHVs 9 MT290Z00390-7C209MTT3-4 NA/http://slingstone Zenfs com/Savunders/B3675C13s9A94296441B585E4E03B74 Breakfast diplomacy. On Thursday and Friday, May and her ministers launched a round of diplomacy in an attempt to break the deadlock, flying to Germany, Ireland and Sweden. Speaking to business executives in Berlin on Thursday night, Davis said the UK was looking at the EU demands on the bill every day and was in constant contact with the EU side. From now to the December summit, we will have pretty much continuous negotiations, Davis said. Meanwhile, May and her Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson held separate talks with their Irish counterparts against a backdrop of an EU demand to settle the question of the post-Brexit border between Ireland, which will stay in the bloc, and Northern Ireland, which will leave as it's part of the EU. May flew to Gothenburg, Sweden, and had breakfast with Irish Prime Minister Leo Varadkar on the sidelines of an informal gathering of EU leaders. May told reporters when she arrived that she'd already set out her vision for a new economic partnership with the EU and it was up to the EU to reply. I look forward to the European Union responding positively so we can move forward together, she said. New Year. For his part, Varadkar said it was for Britain to make compromises, not the EU. If we have to wait for the new year, if we have to wait for further concessions, so be it, he told reporters. Varadkar said he wants a pledge that we won't go back to the borders of the past separating the south from the north on the island of Ireland. We want that written down. In Dublin on Friday, Irish Foreign Minister Simon Coveney warned his British counterpart, Boris Johnson, that efforts to solving the border question are at somewhat of an impasse, jeopardizing the prospects of a breakthrough in Brexit talks next month. May met her Swedish, Polish and Italian counterparts and will later meet European Council President Donald Tusk, who's unlikely to give her better news. According to the BBC, Tusk will warn her that she shouldn't assume she'll get the green light for talks to progress to trade and the transition period at the December summit. European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker reinforced the point. The clock is ticking, he said before the Gothenburg meeting began. I hope that we will be able to come to an agreement as far as the divorce is concerned in the December Council, but work still has to be done. For some in Britain, the blame lies with Europe's big two, France and Germany, for blocking progress. Davis hinted at his frustration in his BBC interview, naming a clutch of other countries that do want to move on to discuss trade and the transition phase. Germany and France are the most powerful players in the EU, he said. What they believe is very influential, sometimes decisively so.